there'll be some, at the sample table, you can see a menu from the restaurant and some of his cards. He'll be hanging around so you can ask him questions, and he's just been, I've worked with him on lots of different things, and he's just a great guy. So thank you, Chef, for coming.
Thank you for having me, Doug. Well, thank you for coming.
And
Good morning, by the way.
As you can see, he's brought some fabulously fragrant spices with him. Chef Kevin Tien, who's going to be also demoing after Ryan, is obviously running a little late, so he may show up and be setting things up, but Ryan, being the pro that he is just going to head right on. We'll wait and take your questions at the end, and I'll turn it over to you, Chef.
All right. So today, what I wanted to demonstrate for you and hopefully inspire you is how to use spices. Okay, I have a modern Israeli restaurant, and I also have an adjacent restaurant that is an Indian street food restaurant connected called Bindas. Okay, between the two restaurants, I use copious amounts of dried spices. A lot of people, will buy a little jar of spice for a specific recipe, take it home, use it, and then try to play Tetris and put it away into a cabinet, close the doors, and then they wither away into obscurity. What I want to inspire you today is to take some of these dried seeds and grains that are just dying in your cabinet at home and utilize them. I want you to not be afraid of spices. Spices are a great way to impart flavor, to change dishes, without adding any fat, salt, sugar. It can really morph your signature dish at home into something else. So I want to explain some of these spices and how to really use them and what they are. All right. So first, my first encounter with spices when I was a young kid. I would come home from school, my parents would both be at work, and I'd have to make myself something to eat. I thought it was really fancy. I'd open up a can of Campbell's soup and raid the spice cabinets and add all these different things. Sometimes it was great, sometimes it wasn't. That was my first entrance and love for spices. So as I got older and became a chef and became a professional, I started realizing that spices are the backbone of flavor for most dishes. I wanted to really let you know not to be scared of spices. A lot of people have signature blends. You can buy store-bought blends. You can make your own blends, which I highly recommend. There are no wrong recipes for these spices. The best thing to do is empty out your spice cabinet, start tinkering with different flavors. They all impart their own flavors and some heat, some cooling spices, but you really want to make your own spice blends. Don't go to the internet, don't follow recipes, create your own. That's what I've done at the restaurant, at Sababa. We create all of our own spice blends, and what I've done for you today as well, at the table after the demo, I've created a bunch of very unique spice mixtures and some fresh spices that as a chef, I'm privy to get. I have spice importers that work for our restaurant group that I can get really great fresh spices. So I wanted to sample for you today at the table, fresh Aleppo, fresh sumac, all these different spices that are not aged on a grocery store shelf, okay? So if you are going out to buy spices, highly recommend going to ethnic stores. Here in Fairfax County, we have a lot of Indian, Asian stores that have fresh spices. Do not go to your grocery store and buy the little glass bottles. Those are large manufacturer pre-packaging them. Those spices are bought in large bulk, sit for a very long time, get bottled, go to the grocery stores, sit for a very long time as well. Spices are best when they're fresh. They dry out and become desiccant sitting in those jars. So I highly recommend finding those small mom and pop stores and ethnic stores and finding those spices. It's better to buy them in those large bags. I know it seems like a lot, but once you start playing around, you'll forget how much you utilize them. Question?
Oh, you said questions later? Oh, sorry.
You can ask a question.
Do it. You can do it now. Here, hang on just a second.
Can you freeze some of the spices in the large bags? Does
Yeah,
help
absolutely,
them?
because most of them have the flavors on the spices really come from a volatile oil. It sounds bad, but those are the flavors in the spices, and since it's oil based, it will freeze very well.
How long, so for those of us who are buying them in little bottles or even bulk, like at the Yes Organic Market, how long are we keeping these spices? All about the same, or some last
Yeah,
longer
I would say
than others?
6 months at the most. If you freeze it, up to a year.
Okay.
Is what I would recommend for that.
So I came down here so I could pass some around if you want to talk about individual ones. I had asked Brian, I'm a big fan of sumac. Has anyone heard of that? It's not the same thing as the plant in Virginia that's sort of native to Virginia, but he was telling me that it's a really good salt substitute for those of you who are looking for that.
So sumac is actually a flowering berry from a plant. Okay, it is ground. Historically, for 2000 BC, it's been used as in the Levant region of the world, which is North Africa, the Middle East. There was no citrus. Citrus came from Asia, so there were no citrus trees. So for 5,000 years, this berry was ground and used for the citrus, for curing, for seasoning. It has a bit of a salty taste to it, but it also has a tartness to it. It's also been used for dye. So it's one of the oldest spices. I use a lot of sumac.
Yeah, tell them how much you use, Chef.
I use 10 pounds a week between my two restaurants, which is a very large amount. You got to imagine, when you go to the grocery store, you're buying a 4-ounce jar of it. And I'm using pounds of it every week. Sumac, feel free to taste it if you want. It has a brightness to it, a saltiness to it.
It's on the sample table over there, so some of you will be able to take it home.
Yes,
Right.
and that is very fresh. If you do taste it, you'll feel it's soft. It's not dried because it is a very fresh product. I wanted to sample that for you today as well, so you can taste the difference of a fresh sumac.
I noticed you had cinnamon in sticks. Do you prefer to get it that way and then grind it yourself?
Absolutely. I never really buy any ground herbs. I always buy whole spices and grind them myself. It's a drastic change in flavor when you grind it yourself. Has a freshness. It dries out much faster in a powdered form. So the flavors dissipate more in a powdered form. Now, I'm glad you said cinnamon. Cinnamon is my favorite herb of all time. You know, most people are
too, right?
yeah, most people, think of it as, pumpkin spice, just used in sweet applications. I use cinnamon in so many savory applications all across my menu. And when you're mixing and grinding your own spice blends, cinnamon adds a really good warmth to the blend and can balance things. Think of Chinese 5-spice. You have star anise, you have fennel, you have cinnamon, which balances all out, and the astringent black peppercorn. So cinnamon is a good balancing thing. Cinnamon is the oldest recorded spice used. The ancient Egyptians went through great pains to import it, and they would grind it up and use it for desiccating the mummies. It was part of the mummification process. Even in Judaism, Jesus' body was discovered missing when they went to go put cinnamon and dry out his body, and it was missing, and that's kind of ancient. Cinnamon is one of those things that has a mystique around it. But it is a bark from a tree. Okay, it is from cassia. There are different varieties. There's a Vietnamese cinnamon. There's large and small. But the cassia cinnamon is by far my favorite.
And is that the softer one that you can sort of break up, or is it the harder one?
That's the Vietnamese one.
Okay.
If you do have large amounts of it, it can be toxic to your liver if you take large amounts of cinnamon at one time.
Wow.
So just be careful. Spices all have medicinal properties as well. In ancient times, all these spices were sought after, wars fought over, secrets kept, because it was used as a medicine and a flavoring for food, because they didn't have a lot of different other flavors.
Of all the things you brought up there, what do you think is the one thing that maybe somebody ought to know about that maybe they don't know about or that they should use more of? Throwing you a curveball here.
Turmeric.
All right.
So if any of you are familiar with any Indian cuisine, masalas, one of the backbone to most masalas are turmeric. If you ever have like chicken tikka masala, now be careful passing this around. Once turmeric stains you, it will not come off, okay, very easily. So just be careful. I use a lot of turmeric in my cooking, in my spice blends as well. One of the things on the menu at my restaurant, Sababa, is I have hiwaj spiced rice. Hiwaj is a very classic Yemen spice blend. There's two different versions. There's a sweeter version that you can put in your coffee and desserts, and I have a sample of that over there. By sweeter, meaning it has less astringent spices. It has no sugar added to it. The backbone of hiwaj is black pepper, cumin, turmeric, cardamom, and that's a savory version. But the sweeter version, instead of black pepper and cumin, cinnamon, clove, and star anise. So very similar things that change just by omitting two different spices. All right.
And what would you put on it?
I love drinking coffee with the sweet hiwaj. It's one of my favorite. It reminds me of like a really upscale Turkish coffee. It goes great with chicken. It's a very classic Yemen stew of chicken, potatoes, and carrots spiced with hiwaj. One of the things I do at the restaurant is I have a wood-burning grill, and I have a lot of different kebabs on my menu. All of my kebabs are served on a hiwaj spiced rice. So what I do is I take plain rice. Plain rice doesn't have a lot of flavor. So what I'll do is I'll take all the spices, the whole spices, not ground, that are in the hiwaj mixture, which are black pepper, star anise, cinnamon, cumin, cardamom, coriander, and make a broth. Cook all those spices in water, and turmeric, I almost forgot the turmeric. Cook all those spices in water, create a really good flavor, strain out those spices, and then cook the rice in that. And then we have this beautiful yellow rice that has this amazing flavor of all these different spices. And that's something you can do at home, and it kind of goes into vein of the theme of this, fresh take on tradition. So traditionally, a lot of people will just cook rice in water. So empty out your spice cabinets. Next time you cook rice, mix them, boil out, make a flavorful liquid to cook your rice in, and then it'll change the way you eat dinner, lunch, breakfast, all that stuff. Now,
We will take some questions now. Kevin obviously really hasn't shown up yet, so we're just going to keep going here. Reggie? Wait. Oh, he's got a mic.
Is it true that turmeric has weight loss properties?
it has a lot of properties. There was a period of time I did organic farming. I lived in the Caribbean for 3 months, and the first time this happened, it blew my mind. One of the farmers came up with a massive cut on his arm, and the farmer I was with go up there, grab the turmeric, dug up a turmeric root, cracked it open, he rubbed it right on his cut, immediately clotted the blood. And turmeric has a lot of health benefits. It's good for your heart, your blood. It can help with weight loss, but the best thing with weight loss is diet.
I've noticed they sell fresh turmeric in more grocery stores now. It looks kind of like ginger, but it's decidedly different, and especially once you crack into it, you see that beautiful color.
Right.
But you get it dried, or you?
Yeah, I get the dry version,
Okay.
the ground turmeric, because I use almost 10 pounds of turmeric a week as well. It's unbelievable how much it is.
Go for it.
Is it on?
Yeah, you have all the different vials there. Could you maybe spend a few seconds just saying what the others are and what
kind of things you use them for?
Absolutely. So this is coriander seed. Okay, so coriander seed has a brightness to it. Okay, this is a great balance in spice blends. It is considered a warming spice. Okay, this is green cardamom pods. Okay, green cardamom pods is also a cooling spice. It has like almost a mentholated smell to it.
And you crack those open, right?
Correct. Grind it, crack it, toast them. Now this is one of my favorites. This is cumin seed. I spin a lot of hummus in my restaurant, and I go through a lot of cumin. Cumin is a great balance with cinnamon. Cinnamon, coriander, and cumin mixed together creates a great warming spice blend. Those are 3 good mixtures. Okay, we talked about cinnamon. This is star anise. Anise is like a licorice flavor, used a lot in Asian cooking, but it gives you a great balance to your spice blends. Black peppercorns give you a spiciness, and we'll cut through some of the cooling and sweeter spices. So,
And there are several different kinds of black peppercorns. I don't know what kind is in the store, but what's the kind that you like?
just plain black peppercorns. Long pepper is great. Pink peppercorns are sweeter if you wanted the sweeter aspect, especially the skin of them. And white pepper is milder than black pepper. But black pepper is better for your spice blends because it will balance the astringency or the sweetness of some of the other spices. A lot of the spices I have on here, like this one is cloves. You might be familiar with cloves. Cloves are the strongest of all the spices. Okay, cloves, if you do a spice blend, if you're playing around at home, cloves use the least amount. It can overpower. Cloves are actually a flower bud. If you look at it, has a little flower bud with a little stem. So that is actually a dried flower bud. The stem of it has a different flavor than the top. If you ever break off the top of a clove, it's a little bit sweeter and less powerful than the little stem part.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
So you've got some kind of funky things up there. Mace, I think, and some dried limes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'll pass these two both around because they grow together. So we're all familiar with nutmeg. Nutmeg is a great soft spice to add flavor. Most people think of it as pumpkin spice. It goes great with savory applications. It's one of the main ingredients in a baharat, so it has a good flavor. And then what you don't see around it much, the way nutmeg grows, it's a big green pod that opens up. Inside is a nut with a membrane encircling it. When you remove that membrane and dry it, that is mace, which has a milder, sweeter flavor than the nutmeg itself. So that one spice creates 2 different spices. Yep.
Back to the cloves. Would you put them in tea?
Yeah, the cloves go great in tea. The cloves also have a volatile oil that numbs. So if you have a toothache, you can put it on your mouth and bite it, and it will numb your whole mouth. And it will stop the pain.
Let's have some teas that smell and sort of taste like
Yeah, cloves are good. Just be careful with the amount that you use because it can be overpowering.
Yeah, we don't have to just stick them in a ham. I just did a recipe the other day that had a lot more clove than I'm used to using, and I thought it was going to be overpowering, but it actually worked really well. What you got there?
All right, this is probably one of my favorite spices. And this one I use about 10 pounds we eat at the restaurant. This is Aleppo pepper. All right, it's called Aleppo because it was the type of pepper that was cultivated in the capital city of Syria. It is a dried ground chili that has a sweetness to it. Now, I do have samples of it because it is one of I use it instead of black pepper for seasoning a lot of my food and dishes. You're more than welcome to taste it. It has a sweet spiciness. If the spice is instant and then goes away, it just has a lot of flavor. It is one of the most amazing chilies to use in replace of chili flake, which can be a little hard. Sprinkle that on pizza, on your eggs, things like that. It'll change all your dishes from the traditional flavor to a more modern take.
All right, one more. I'm going to ask him about dried mint, which you haven't really talked about much yet, but I was mentioning to him that it's another spice that I ended up, or herb, dried herb, end up using more of than I thought I would when I bought the little bag of it. So tell us things to do with dried mint.
Dried mint is also an ingredient in a lot of spice mixtures. This is fenugreek.
Fenugreek. Oh, fenugreek. Yeah, we'll talk about fenugreek too. Oh, it's such a great smell.
Yeah, fenugreek is one of the backbones to a lot of Indian cuisine and masalas. When you smell it, you'll recognize that smell. Fenugreek is a plant that actually has seeds and the leaves, completely different flavors. Very good for your health if you make a tea out of it. Very good for your blood. But I do like fenugreek. I make a hot sauce called zud, which is a Yemen hot sauce. And I use fenugreek, which is an untraditional ingredient that gives it a unique flavor that nobody else in the city has. And it's one of those things that it's very difficult to find unless you go to like an Indian spice importer or store as well.
Okay, so thank you very much, Ryan. He's going to be around to answer your questions and to hand out samples. He's got some rice that he's going to do some seasonings on, and he did create all those little wonderful samples of spice blends for you guys to take home. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Hopefully you'll be encouraged to go home, empty out your spice cabinet, play around, try different flavors. Some will work, some won't. Don't give up. Just keep, tinkering, making your own spice blends, and then you can eventually replenish with fresher spices. Don't be afraid of the spices in your cabinet.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Sure, the